My name is John. I want to share something that still makes my heart race when I think about it. You might be wondering if there's a hidden part of our world that we don't see. Let me tell you, I used to doubt it myself. I was a guy who trusted only what I could touch or measure. But then came the day I died in a hospital and discovered there's more. This is the secret that changed my life. And at first it scared me. Then it gave me 7 lessons I want to pass on to you. I hope you'll stick around to hear them all because the ending still surprises me even today. I was traveling in Paris with students from the college where I taught. We were checking out art and soaking up every bit of culture we could. I was in my 40s, feeling strong and sure of myself. One day, out of the blue, I got hit with a sharp pain in my stomach. It was worse than any pain I'd felt. I tried to shake it off. I thought I'd eaten something bad or maybe gotten a bug, but it got so intense that I collapsed. My students rushed me to a local hospital, and they found I had a perforation in my stomach. If I didn't get help soon, I'd be gone. But there was a big problem. It was a weekend, and the surgeon I needed wasn't there. Time seemed to crawl by. The nurses tried to keep me stable, but they said I had to wait until they could line up the right people to operate. Pain hammered my body. I was hot, then cold, then drenched with sweat. Each breath felt like a fight. After hours of this, I started to sense my strength leaving me. I went from hoping I'd be okay to fearing I would not make it. Then came the moment my eyes closed. It felt like I went to sleep, but I woke up still in the room when I was standing there looking at my own body in the bed. The confusion hit me like a shock. I tried to talk to my wife, who stood by me with a worried face, but she didn't react. She didn't hear me. She just kept staring at my body in bed. I touched her shoulder. My hand went right through her. It felt like a bad dream. I kept telling myself, oh, this can't be real. But something in me said I was dead. As I stood there in a panic, I noticed shadowy figures at the door. They spoke in quiet voices, calling me by name. John, come here, hurry. At first I thought they were hospital staff. I kept asking them what was going on. They only whispered, come with us, now. Against my better judgment, I followed them into the hallway. But the more I walked, the darker it got. The corridor seemed endless. Soon I realized we weren't in the hospital anymore. We were in some strange gray space. I was so confused. These figures grew agitated. They moved around me, nudging me to keep going. Their voices changed. They sounded hoarse and mocking. And when I hesitated, they began pushing and pulling at me. I started to resist, and that's when they turned aggressive. I yelled at them to stop, but they jeered at my anger. The place around me felt cold and lifeless. I could barely see. They began to tear at me in a way that was so vile, I can't bring myself to say every detail. My body, whatever form it was in, was ripped and clawed. Their words were twisted and hateful. I felt shame, anger, and above all, deep fear. I fought back, screaming and cursing, but I was outnumbered. They seemed to feed off my terror. Then a thought came, pray. It felt strange because I never prayed before. I had been an atheist. To me, that was just how it was. But in that hopeless moment, I tried to recall some line of prayer from childhood. The words felt shaky, and I might have made half of them up. But I said something like, God in heaven, please help me. The mocking crowd hissed at me. There is no God. You're ours. That made me want to pray harder. All at once, a tiny light glowed in the darkness. It got brighter. I could sense these figures backing off. I tried to focus on that light. Before I knew it, I felt gentle hands reaching under my arms. Something pulled me away from that dark horde. These twisted beings shrieked, but the force lifting me was stronger. It was like being carried out of a pit of filth, and I felt clean air around me. Warmth wrapped around me. Then I saw them, beings of light, shining with a brilliance that somehow didn't hurt my eyes. I can't explain the feeling. It was love, plain and simple. They glowed with this acceptance I'd never known. No words can describe the sweetness of it. I wanted to cry, laugh, collapse. One of them spoke to me without words. It was direct mind-to-mind contact. He or it said, "You are safe. We have you." I felt relief like never before. I was sure I was in the presence of heavenly beings. I knew in a deep way that I was being protected from darkness. Then I felt another presence. I knew it was Jesus, though I can't tell you how. It was like he radiated pure kindness. It hit me that I had spent my life laughing off the idea of God, yet here he was standing with me. When I looked at him, I saw a being of pure light, but the light wasn't cold or distant. It was alive and personal. I wanted to say, I'm so sorry, because I felt I had no right to stand with him. But he already knew my heart. He opened his arms to me, and that embrace poured waves of love into me. I felt forgiven, but also exposed. There was no hiding from him. Part of me worried that my shame would show, but his love was so big, it covered everything. I tried to say something about how unworthy I was. He just held me closer, like a parent calming a frightened child. Then the strangest part came. We rose into a higher realm that felt bright and alive. I don't remember traveling through a tunnel, but it was more like we soared upward. Suddenly, I found myself in a place of brilliant light, surrounded by these angels or spirits. They were excited, almost like a family greeting someone at the airport. Jesus stood with me in the middle. Then he said, "We shall look at your life." I thought, oh man, this is going to be bad. And it was hard. I saw every detail of my life, like a movie. There were parts that made me proud, like times I showed kindness or creativity, but most of it made me feel regret. I saw moments I hurt people without even realizing it. I saw the impact of my selfish words, how they wounded others in ways I never noticed before. What struck me most was how Jesus reacted. He never turned away. He never said, "I'm disgusted with you." He stood there, shining love, showing me these events so I'd learn from them. The biggest lesson was that love is everything that matters. Nothing else lasts or means much. I saw how shallow my pursuits had been. I was all about success and personal comfort. I didn't care about helping anyone, and it showed. Jesus let me feel his sadness for all the times I could have loved better. He wasn't angry, but he let me sense how I missed chances to be kind. That review ended, and I was trembling. I wanted to make it right. I wanted to do better. That's when Jesus said he had some things to show me. I won't pretend I understood everything. I saw scenes of the future. Some were bright, with people living in harmony, caring for the planet, caring for each other. But there were darker scenes too, where war and greed caused great harm. It was as if multiple paths stretched before us. Then Jesus spoke, "Love one another, for I love you. Care for those who suffer. Take care of the earth." I saw that we have free will, and things can go very wrong or very right depending on how we love. One angel stepped forward and said, "You can stay here or you can go back." The longing in me wanted to stay. This place was safe, full of warmth, no pain. But I remembered my wife and how frightened she was. I remembered the people I could help if I returned. I felt torn. Then I heard Jesus say, "I want you to go back. You have work to do." My heart sank, but I also felt honored that he wanted me to share what I learned. I said, "I'll go." Right away, I felt pulled back, like getting yanked downward at incredible speed. Next thing I knew, I snapped into my body. Pain hit me again. I gasped for air. My wife cried out, "Oh my God, he's breathing." Nurses rushed around and the doctors got me into surgery. They fixed the perforation. It took a long time to heal, but I survived. I told my wife I was dead and something brought me back. She looked at me with surprise, then relief, then tears. Over the next weeks, I shared bits of my experience. Some people believed me, others looked at me like I was confused, but nobody could change what I felt in my heart. I used to scoff at religion. Now, I started praying. Not fancy words, just honest thoughts, talking to God like a friend. I looked for ways to be more giving. I felt like I had a second chance. So I tried to show my wife and my students more kindness. I wanted to share what I'd learned, but that was scary. I knew many people would think I was making it up, but in my core, I knew it was real. Over time, I realized there were 7 big lessons I got from that day. Love is the center of everything. It's what matters more than anything else. Our actions have a ripple effect we don't see. Kindness and cruelty both spread. There is a spiritual realm that's just as real as this world. We are more than our bodies. Our dark forces exist, and they feed off fear and hate. That realm is horrific, but we are not helpless. A prayer or calling out to the light can break the hold of darkness. Even a faint prayer can help. We are loved more deeply than we can imagine. No matter how lost we feel, that love never leaves, and our lives have purpose. We can choose to share goodness and help others find hope. When I think back, I still shudder at the memory of those dark beings. It's hard to describe the horror of their hunger for torment. They wanted to see me hurt, yet I also recall the power of that bright presence that saved me. I believe we can all call on that same light if we ever find ourselves in despair. Some parts of what I saw are too big for words, but I'll tell you the best I can. Where I was, everything made sense. Love was the law. When I returned to my body, it felt like being squeezed into a tight suit again. I lost that sense of total clarity, but I carried back the memory of who I was when I stood in that light. That memory still changes me. The doctors said my surgery was complicated, but they saw me recover faster than they expected. I felt like I'd been given a spark of new energy. My wife said she noticed I changed. I was more patient, more open. When I got back to teaching, I stopped mocking the faith of others. I tried to encourage my students to look for meaning in their art and in their lives. I still had my flaws. I still got grumpy and worried about everyday stuff, but something major shifted inside me. One day, I met a man who told me he'd heard rumors I'd found religion. I said, "You know, I found love." He laughed, but he seemed curious. He asked me to explain. I told him I met Jesus and angels and I saw a realm of darkness. He didn't know what to say, but I could tell he wanted to believe in something like that. It's strange how many people long for hope but fear being laughed at if they mention God. That's why I'm sharing this. At first I was scared I'd look foolish, but I feel a need to let others know we're loved. Even in our worst moments, love can break through. I was dragged to a place so dark it still terrifies me to think about it, and yet one simple prayer shattered those chains. The love that reached me in that pit was stronger than anything. When that light pulled me away from the cruelty of those beings, I felt saved in every sense of the word. I learned that life doesn't end at death. It continues on a spiritual plane. And what we do here carries weight over there. But I also realized we're not alone. There are angels and other beings who cheer us on. They want us to show kindness, to help each other, and to take care of our world. In the end, it's pretty simple. When you stand in front of perfect love, you see what counts. Sometimes I wake up at night and I remember floating with those angels.